And the Uber driver says, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a writer, actually." And he goes, "Well, what do you write about?" And I go, "Mostly about metrics." I go, "Mostly metrics." And I bought the domain on my phone right there and then. And that's the only money I'd ever put into the business. And the name GoDaddy, I assume there were a lot of domains around back then when you started. Do you know where that came from?
I joined almost 4 years ago, and I went on a mission to figure out, where did this name come from? There must be some crazy story. So,
is this thing on?
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Welcome back to the Run the Numbers podcast, where, folks, we have officially jumped the shark. Why? Because I am somehow joined by Mark McCaffrey, the CFO of GoDaddy.com, to talk about the evolution of one of the most recognizable brands on the internet and what it takes to support the millions and millions of entrepreneurs who rely on it. We're kicking things off with GoDaddy's journey from a household name and domain registration to a full-service platform for small businesses. Mark shares how the business model has evolved and what's top of mind for the company today. Then we dig into micro businesses like this one, the scrappy backbone of the economy. What trends is GoDaddy seeing in small business formation, survival rates, and AI adoption? And how do they think about churn in a world where businesses start and stop all the time? And finally, we're talking about the metrics that matter, how Mark decides what to disclose, why certain KPIs have evolved over time, and what he looks for when it comes to durable, recurring revenue. Please stick around because this one's packed with insight, big picture strategy, and maybe a few surprise domain names that I own and that I've just been storing for a rainy day. All this and much, much more after a short word from our sponsors. Ready to plan confidently, close faster, and report with accuracy? Here's what sets Planful apart. Imagine purpose-built solutions for every department, from FP&A to accounting, marketing to HR, all with built-in financial intelligence. It's easy to implement Planful in just weeks with minimal IT involvement, enabling seamless collaboration across your organization's key financial workflows. Best of all, Planful grows with you. Its unmatched scalability ensures that no matter how fast your business expands, Planful can keep up. See why over 1,500 customers worldwide choose Planful as their flexible, user-friendly, end-to-end financial performance management platform. Visit planful.com/metrics to see how you can elevate your team this year with Planful. They will hook you up. It is planful.com/metrics. Tell them your boy CJ sent you. Planful.com/metrics. Well, if you've listened to this podcast before, you definitely know that I think it's cool to be a fan of business. I'm obsessed with researching how the best companies operate and specifically how they manage their money. And I've learned that a company's financial stack can make the difference between world domination and obscurity. That's why I want to tell you about Brex, because I want you to rule the world. Brex is an impressive financial services and software company that has grown immensely since it was founded in 2017. In just the last year alone, Brex accelerated customer acquisition by 50%, with 91% growth in enterprise customers. And there's good reason that over 30,000 companies from startups to enterprises have flocked to Brex. Brex offers the world's smartest corporate card on a full-stack global platform that is everything CFOs need to manage their finances on an elite level. Plus, they offer modern banking and treasury, as well as intuitive expenses and accounting automation, bill pay, and travel. Wow, it's all on the roster whenever you need it. Brex grows with you. CFOs tell me all the time that Brex makes it easy to control spend before it happens, automate annoying tasks, and optimize their finances. Because listen, at the end of the day, Brex helps them make every dollar count. So if you're a fan of smart businesses too, check out Brex at brex.com/metrics. That's brex.com/metrics. Trust isn't earned, it's demanded. Whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a seasoned security professional scaling your GRC program, proving your commitment to security has never been more critical or complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks, like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. Centralized security workflows, complete questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risk. Vanta not only saves you time, it can also save you money. A new IDC white paper found that Vanta customers achieve $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. Join over 9,000 global companies like Atlassian, Cora, and Factory, who use Vanta to manage risk and improve security in real time. For a limited time, our audience gets $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/metrics. That's vanta.com/metrics for $1,000 off. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
TJ, thank you for having me on.
I'm a huge GoDaddy fan. I'm a collector, a connoisseur of sorts. I think if you open the GoDaddy app on my phone right now, you'd probably find 20, 30 domains.
That is awesome. We thank you for your continued support.
My wife calls me a hoarder. I'm not sure if collector, investor. What do you call a person like me? Serial entrepreneur?
We call them investors. So, we when you hit a certain amount of domain names, we refer to you as a serial investor, which is great. We love them. They're a great big part of our customer base. And the great thing, CJ, it doesn't take up room in your house, right?
Amen. She's still trying to get rid of my baseball card collection. It's in the closet behind me.
Yeah, we can go with the baseball card collections. I have one too that I finally had to put into binders because my wife got tired of them laying in a box somewhere. So I feel your pain.
Well, Mark, the entrepreneurial journey in many ways starts with searching for your company name on GoDaddy and then maybe realizing that the .com version is way more expensive than you thought it was. But I just wanted to get your take. Like, do you feel like you're well entrenched in like this entrepreneurial micro startup ecosystem?
Yeah, so we're where people come with ideas, right? You have an idea, you want to, whether it's a side hustle or it's something you really want to take up full time. It starts with the name and what names are out there and what is the art of the possible. In the past, even you would have to think of a name, type it in, and see if it was still available. If it's not, there's a secondary market that we call aftermarket now that you can, maybe buy it from somebody, but we don't control the prices on that. So that's a buyer and seller decision there. But now with Arrow, and it's a new platform that we introduced earlier in the year. It's AIRO. My New Jersey accent sometimes runs over I, so I want to always spell it out for people. It based on what you're looking for, it actually gives you names. It'll give you a list of like 20 names that might be something you're thinking about. So it takes away that exercise of discovery from you and actually starts presenting you with options of, hey, we think these names. You want to do a bike shop in Arizona? We think these names would be perfect, and they're all available.
There's something to be said about a company's name. I know people take a lot of pride in it, and it's always kind of like this launching point, whether or not it impacts you long term of what your financial outcome will be. But the name GoDaddy, it's kind of wacky, and I assume there were a lot of domains around back then when you started. Do you know where that came from?
I joined almost 4 years ago, and I went on a mission to figure out where did this name come from. Like, there must be some crazy story. So, at the time we had a chairman of the board who, dated way back about 15 years. I started asking the question, and the only answer I could get was there was a group of people that were sitting around a table going through names, and someone said GoDaddy, and everybody laughed. It was funny. It was memorable. But then someone typed in and said, well, it's available. And so that became the name of the company with the idea of it just sounded fun. And if you look back now, 20 some odd years, everybody remembers the name. So it worked. Whatever they thought of back then worked. And GoDaddy has such a great brand. Obviously, a lot of time spent early on in our tenure as a company was around branding and making sure everybody knew we were the place to come to domains. And now, as we get into the next part of our journey, we want to be known as the one-stop shop for entrepreneurs. So that when you have an idea, come to us. We'll handle everything.
Well, let's talk about that because GoDaddy certainly is a household name. I bet you had a large part in driving up the price of Super Bowl ads over the last decade or so. And my grandmother probably knows you do domain names, but not everybody knows about all the other modules or products you offer. So I'm curious how you've seen the business model evolve over time.
Yeah, it's great. And it is, we've started with, the domain name. And then we said, hey, it would be great if we could offer some email. So we went into the email space, and then we went into the website space. And then we came up with the idea, well, why should anybody go anywhere else but to us when they're creating an idea? And then we started with commerce. And now we have multiple website products depending on what kind of business or complexity you want in your business. But the idea became around entrepreneurs and making their lives easier, offering care. Our care organization is a personal touch. When you're talking about the mom and pop shop down the block who just wants to be selling to broader customers, whether on social media now or, to the town next door, they just want to be touching more customers. They don't want to be worrying about 8 applications in the background, whether they work together or not. What do they have to do at night to reconcile everything? They just want that ease of use. And if they need help with something, they just want to call up and talk to a person. That's what we do. Like I always say, we're here for the underdog, right? We're here for that person who has an idea, who wants to broaden it out. We're here for that mom and pop shop down the block. We don't cost that much. Like when you look at our ARPU, we're a little above $200, but for all that benefit, an email, a website, commerce, you're getting it at such a great value that you're able to focus on the things that you want to do. And that means, selling or creating or putting things out there. And I will tell you, and CJ, then I'll pause because, what my wife always says is I can just keep talking, right? I can just keep talking. But I got a note from a 5th grader who had a school project that they had to create a business online, and they did it using our Arrow. And they had these handmade cards. They made $400, within a week, creating their own website and putting it up and just using it for all their classmates. That to me was the epitome of this is how easy it has become and why we wanted to be that one-stop shop. A 5th grader was able to do this and make $400. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. And please don't stop talking, because as a podcast, it would be pretty awkward if you did.
True that.
Mark, there's something to be said about where you enter a customer relationship. Like in vertical software, sometimes people call it the control point, but you get the customer at this spot in their journey and you sell them a product that allows you to expand elsewhere. Like it's almost like a strategic high ground that you start with the domain. I mean, would you agree it gives you an opportunity to do other things?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And start with, we've been around a while and we have almost 21 million customers. We have 14 million interactions with our customer every year through our care organization. We get 1.2 billion data signals daily from our customers. We have a ton of data that allows us to really look at where our customers need us and then look to, okay, how do we engage them so we're giving them those offerings and making, again, their life easy in that one-stop shop. So it is a high ground, because if you look at the data that we have, how long we've been around, the relationships we have with our customers, and our ability to continue to invest in providing them what they need, I would like to say we're doing pretty good at it, right?
You have such a unique vantage point on micro businesses, and that's a term that I've heard you throw around on earnings calls. What does micro business mean to you?
Well, what I wanted to do when I came up with the term micro business is really start to differentiate where people in the market were talking about small businesses. And there are small businesses and then there are small businesses. People talk about business formation, small businesses, and there's a lot of statistics around there. But we're meeting our customers way before that. We're meeting our customers at the ideation phase. I'll talk about baseball cards because I do own the domain name markbaseballcard.com, just so you know. And you come up with an idea that when you start to go through your baseball card collection, all of a sudden you realize there's some value there and you want to sell it. So you create a website, and you can take transactions on our website because we do the payments as well. So you might not call yourself a small business at that point. You would probably refer to yourself as a hey, this is a side hustle, this is a micro business. But it generally is to segregate out that we're really meeting the businesses at the beginning. Small businesses could be up to 100 people by some definition. We're like 1 to 5 people, maybe 1 to 10 people when we're meeting our customers. And that's what we do best. That's the customer base we target. That's where we want to be. That's where we continue to innovate around. And we can grow with them to be bigger, but we're meeting them at that first stage. And that's our bread and butter.
Yeah, I interview a lot of venture capitalists on PE people on the podcast as well. And if you think about like the investment life cycle, you're like way to the left. You're like before even pre-seed, maybe even before angel investors. You're like way early. That
is right. We are literally at the idea phase.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you say, you're going to have this because you're going to do cjbaseballcard.com probably after this meeting, and you're going to go and say, oh my God, I got to sell all my baseball cards. You're going to have to figure out that domain name that allows you to go do that and build that website that you can just hand out. The great thing, even you can take payments on our domain names now. So we've even differentiated the domain name in and of itself that it takes payments directly. And again, you're probably not even thinking about, am I going to be a small business at that point? You're literally the definition of an entrepreneur at that point.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Here's a question. Do you feel like you're wasting time and energy on contract renewals or tracking shadow IT spend or, this is a bad one, explaining rising software costs to the board? Truth is, traditional spend management is broken. That's where Tropic comes in. Tropic is an intelligent spend management solution that consolidates your spend data and processes into one unified offering, enabling insights and decisive action. It doesn't just show you where the problems are, it helps you solve them. From spotting hidden optimization opportunities like duplicative spend to automating those painful procurement workflows to giving you the best market data that turns every vendor negotiation in your favor. I'm a Tropic customer myself. I've been using them for over a year, and I love their price checks. They allow me to see if I'm getting a fair market deal instantly. And I'm proud to say that I am no longer using my email as our company's contract repository. I've got every document and renewal neatly organized in my Tropic portal. Isn't it time to turn spend management into your competitive advantage? Visit tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics to see what's possible when intelligence drives your decisions. tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics. What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market. Rates will rise, rates will fall. Can someone please just invent a crystal ball already? Until then, over 40,000 businesses have future-proofed their companies with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. Whether you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's next. If you listen to this podcast, you'll know I ask CFOs all the time to rep their tech stacks, and I would say almost every one of them use NetSuite. And that's what I would use too. Whether you're a company earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/metrics. The guide is free to you. That is netsuite.com/metrics. Ooh, yeah, it's netsuite.com/metrics. Please, guys, I really need this. Does your revenue recognition process feel like a total guessing game? Step right up and pick a card, any card. You're not alone. Revenue accounting is getting more complex, especially with subscription models, usage-based billing, and evolving compliance standards. Woohoo! RightRev is here to help you gain control over your revenue accounting. RightRev automates the revenue recognition process from end to end. Whether it's multi-element arrangements, subscription renewals, or complex usage-based contracts, RightRev takes care of it all. That means fewer spreadsheets, fewer errors, and more time for your team to focus on growth. Customers like Snowflake, Logic Monitor, and Epicor chose RightRev to manage their high volume and complex revenue accounting. CFOs can see the bigger picture faster without being held up by their team's reporting nightmares. You know me, I'm a business model fanatic. And don't get me wrong, I love all the evolutions. We've got self-serve revenue, usage-based revenue, and now even success-based revenue, you name it. But that doesn't make it any easier for us being counters on the back end to keep score. RightRev is like a cheat code for staying ahead of revenue complexities. So you're ready to transform your revenue accounting? Visit RightRev.com to schedule a demo. That's RightRev.com and tell them your boy CJ sent you. RightRev, modern revenue recognition simplified. Oh yeah. So funny story of one of my interactions with GoDaddy. I always wanted to be a writer growing up. I ended up being a CFO. So very, very, very close, I really landed the plane there.
I get it.
But I started this newsletter. It's called Mostly Metrics. And I was really passionate about it, but I was trying to figure out like how to brand it all. And it was originally called stealmyidea.io, which I had also purchased on GoDaddy. But I was trying to figure out like my whole concept of what it was going to be. And it ended up becoming this on-ramp for people to understand financial topics in simple ways. And I was trying to, I think, manifest like this idea into like existence and make it something real. And we were in Uber one time, and my wife, of course, loves to talk to the Uber driver. Some people like to do that. I'm more the quieter type. And the Uber driver says, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a writer, actually." And he goes, "Well, what do you write about?" And I go, "Mostly about metrics." I go, "Mostly metrics." And I bought the domain on my phone right there and then. And that's the only like money I'd ever put into the business. And since then, that moment when I bought it, I think I was at 400 subscribers at the time. And I said, "This is crazy. I'm going to pay $1,000 for a domain." Now it's at 60,000 subscribers. And so like it all started with that moment.
Yeah, it all starts with the moment. And there's so many different use cases. Mine is my wife and I love Napa, right? And we have a small place up there, and people always call us for, "Hey, I'm coming to Napa. Where should we go?" And I got tired of writing down the list all the time. So I created a website. And that website now I just hand out has all the restaurants in Napa, it has all the vineyards in Napa, and it creates that use case of, hey, websites are great for sharing information. Websites are great for publishing. My daughter has a book review blog she does on a website. Again, I had to go out and buy the domain name for her and get it up and running. But those are the ideas that keep coming back. And CJ, what you pointed out, an important fact, you've obviously broadened yourself since those days of Mostly Metrics.
Yeah.
Fair to say. The entrepreneur usually has multiple ideas and launches them continuously. And we love that type of entrepreneur, because I'll go out and meet a customer, and a lot of times they will say to me, "Oh, which website do you want to talk about? I have four. I have four things in the iron right now, right? So, which one do you want to go with?" And I laugh. That is the personality of the people, our customers, and that's what makes them just such a great group to be engaged with.
And I want to talk about the other side of the coin, right? Because not all micro businesses work out, not all side hustles work out. You got to start somewhere. You got to give it a try. But how do you think about churn as a CFO?
Perfect. And churn, a part of our business, and one of the metrics we follow very closely. And you're right. Most of the time when we have churn, it's because the idea didn't get off the ground or ultimately didn't work. But what we find is entrepreneurs are a passionate, resilient group. And if they don't succeed at first, they just go to the next idea. So a lot of times what we find is an entrepreneurial launch, maybe they don't get that one off the ground, but then they turn around and buy another domain name and a website because they want to go with something else. So churn is a part of what we do. There's no doubt about it. But when we see that customer finally launch, and this is a great statistic we use out there, our average retention rate is 85%. And that's phenomenal for what we do and the type of customer we're at. Most of that happens in the first year with the domain name and with it not launching. If we get them to a year, that average retention, or the churn, the inverse, goes down. The churn goes down significantly. If we get them to a second product and get them getting value out of that second product, our retention rate spikes. If we get them to a third product, we pretty much have a customer for life. And that's how we think about it, is how do we provide more and more value to the entrepreneur where they're getting value out of it? And when we do that, we don't lose our customers after that. And it's a great thing, and it's a great way for us to really push this Arrow platform, which took away discovery and put it into the AI engine, and allows people to see, okay, you got a domain name, you're going to need a website. Here's a website. All right. Here's 8 examples of a website. You can launch them right now. Oh, if you're going to be selling this stuff, here's a professional email for you. And it doesn't sound like you just started this 3 days ago. It actually sounds like a professional email. It's going to help you do business. All those things provide incremental value, get us to that metric of second, third product, and get us to those retention rates, which obviously in turn takes down our churn. But we monitor it. It's a big part of the business, right? What we find is, though, churn is just that idea, that first idea, maybe not hitting.
I think you could also look at it like you created an at-bat for somebody that may not have been there otherwise. And in that sense, yes, there is churn, but you are making the pie bigger and there was an opportunity that might not have been there.
Yeah, that's right. I actually love the baseball analogy. By the way, if I didn't become a CFO, I was going to try out pitching for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Didn't work out very well, so I'm a CFO instead. But yes, absolutely. Entrepreneurs are so resilient. They don't just stop at one idea. They keep going and they keep going and they keep going. And that's why our customer base has been so durable. And that's why they keep coming back to us to get value. They know us for the domain. They now know us for the one-stop shop. And even if their first idea doesn't get off the ground, they know they can turn around and use them the second idea because they were getting value out of the products we were giving in the first place.
I'm a super nerd for investor day decks, investor day presentations, and Datadog observability, cybersecurity always has this slide that is multi-product attach rate, and then they talk about it in the context of retention, and they show that they have customers that they have to keep updating it, but it's like customers on 3 products, 4 products, 5 products, 8 products, and what you said, Mark, was so powerful that once you get somebody to 3 products, it's like game over, you're a customer for life.
Yeah, and the statistic we use is if you assume a domain is 1x LTV, and then you take the customer on the journey from domain to email to website to payments, but when they get to payments for us, that LTV now goes to 83x. That is what drives our model, our profitability, our durability, our free cash flow that we generate. All that is based on that presumption of if we can continue this journey, we can bring new customers in our funnel. We're known for the domain name. Most of our traffic comes in naturally. People just know that they have to get a domain name. They come to us. That's the 1x. When we take them on that journey and get to that 83x, that makes our model tick. That's that LTV and that's that durability and predictability we always talk about.
That's beautiful. In that sense, the domain name is just the top of the funnel.
It is just the top of the funnel. And, listen, give credit to our founders and their idea around bringing people to the domain. They really had a vision about making us the biggest player in the space. They did it. And today our entire platform is built off that theory of, hey, how do you become now the operating system for the entrepreneur?
And how many customers did you say you have again?
We have about 21 million customers. 21 million.
So what surprised you in some of the data that you've seen recently from 21 million customers?
What's just been so much fun to watch over the last year since we launched Arrow, and people are engaging. So to put it in perspective, we've had 4 million customers discover Arrow, the platform itself, and about half have engaged in a meaningful way. What we are loving is observing the data. And an example would be social media. Our mom and pop shops, they don't want to be doing social media. It's not that they don't want to do, they don't have time to do. It's something you would do at night. If you're running a store during the day, you're not doing social media. You have to come home at night and do social media. You have multiple different platforms you're probably trying to engage in. You don't know where to market, when to send out campaigns, how to respond to potential things coming in. So the AI engine actually does it all for you. And what we're finding, it even writes the responses for you of incoming inquiries, and then it'll put them out automatically. What we love is the actual AI, generated responses get more click-throughs on the other end from their customers than their own written, responses out there. We've discovered things like logos are a huge deal. Logos, people come in now, with the idea, the first thing they want is a logo. So you start to observe all these different data points about what entrepreneurs are thinking about when they're just getting started. And it is so much fun. And then the way the platform works, we're able to say, okay, we think logo is a great place to make the second decision. And maybe we should move that playing card on Arrow to right after the domain name. And you see them all of a sudden change behavior around it. You're like, yep, that's what it was. We got the logo. So observing just the behavior and then the success on the customer end and watching it, especially through this AI driven platform that we've created, and to put it in perspective, all that data I talked about drives our experience because it's our own data. That has just been amazing. And to see the incrementality that is causing in our customer success has just been so much fun over the last year.
Mark, you run a big company, but you also talk to leaders at big companies. You talk to micro businesses. You talk to, three guys in a garage. Do you actually think that the smaller companies are more willing to lean into AI than some of the bigger ones right now?
Well, it's easier, right? And I always say this, when you're talking about an entrepreneur, someone just starting out, the tools they're getting online, we're not going to them and saying, hey, try our AI. We're saying, hey, we have something that's going to help save you time.
This is a solution.
Here's the solution, right? We're looking at what they need to do and saying, hey, this will do it for you. And I met with one customer, and coming back to the social media post, she was worried because her daughter did all her social media. Daughter was in high school. She was leaving for college in the fall. She's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't respond to all this social media. My daughter was doing it. And I'm like, oh, I got something for you. Here we go. This is going to take care of all your needs. She didn't know it was AI driven. Like, she never even dawned on her that this was, AI. It was, oh my God, you have something that will replace my daughter. This is great.
You can never truly replace your daughter, but for that sense, you definitely can.
For someone with 3 daughters, thanks for saying that publicly, and I agree.
I have 2 daughters. You might hear them screaming downstairs right now. Mark, let's talk about the metrics that matter. How do you determine which metrics matter in terms of what you disclose and guide to?
Well, we look at the model and we look at the evolution of the model. We also talk to our investors and we find out what they want to say. And then we sit back and say, okay, what is going to really show our investors, even our customers, even our employees, how we are progressing towards our stated objectives, and whether that's free cash flow, whether that's, product attach, whether that's ARR, ARPU, those are all metrics that we look at very closely and we talk about. Now, I believe, you can over metric at times. You don't want too metrics, so you want the metrics that are, you want some leading indicators and metrics, and you want some lagging indicators and metrics, so you can tell everybody where you're going, and then you can tell everybody when you got there, and you can make sure there's a direct line between the two when you talk about it publicly, and then you have to be consistent. Has always been my mantra is, once you put them out there, you have to talk about them consistently so people understand that you're being transparent, good and bad. And what you can't do is ebb and flow with different metrics at different times, because then you're really not telling the cohesive story of what a durable and predictable model should be. But we evaluate it every year what metrics we're going to use, and then if we believe there is a new metric out there, we'll test it for a little while. We'll talk to our investors about it. Hey, is this something that's useful? And then we'll launch it in what I call our new cycle. When we do an investor day, if there's a new metric that has to go out, usually that is when I will talk to everybody about it. An example would be, I think it was a year or two ago, I decided we were going to disclose our customer count quarterly. We had been doing it annually. And I was very clear with our investors that we were going to be doing dispositions, and we were going to be, doing some consolidation of our tech stack, and that was going to, impact our customer numbers overall. And I wanted to take them on the journey and talk about it quarterly so they understood and wouldn't be shocked if things moved in a certain direction. It worked perfectly. We talk about it openly. We disposed of some entities. It impacted our customer numbers. Everybody knew exactly what we were talking about, and it was received very well within the investor base. So there was always a lot of thought that goes into how do these take people on the journey and making sure that you're really showing them in a productive and useful manner that people can track what you're doing. I am a true believer in you have to combine leading and lagging indicators to make sure you're covering both ends of the spectrum. And that's how we look at it.
Mark, that particular example that you gave around customer count, that's actually a brave thing to do in an age where most companies aren't disclosing total customers anymore. They're just giving you, this is the number of customers over 100,000. This is the number of customers over 1 million.
Yeah. So we wanted to make sure that, number one, we took people on the journey. Two, we allowed everybody to understand what we consider a customer. And you have different metrics out there. People talk about subscribers, for example. Well, one customer can have 4 subscriptions.
Yeah.
Still one customer. And to us, that customer, we do everything based on that customer. Now, the customer in and of itself isn't bookings and revenue. You get to numbers like ARPU and you get to numbers like attach, which grow off that customer number, but it is an important number, and we continue to monitor it to make sure we're looking at it appropriately. And we actually talked about our strategy a couple of years ago, that we wanted to go after customers with intent. And I say that a customer with intent is somebody who's coming in who wants to start a business, and somebody who's going to really look for that second product or that third product. And what we don't want is customers who are coming in just for the cheapest domain price.
Yes.
Because those generally are going to be the customers that churn on you, as soon as you start to try to give them additional value. So we made that pivot. And what did we see when we did it? We saw, our orders at customer initiation going up higher than they've ever been. We've seen customers attaching 25% at a 25% faster rate than they did a few years ago. We're seeing all the statistics around our strategy working, and we're able to talk about it in the context we've given you all the components of this. We're giving you the customer number. We're talking about the orders. We're talking about the attach. And we're talking about our retention rate. It all works together, but it is the story of, how the whole LTV is driven.
Mark, this is super inside baseball, but hey, it's a CFO podcast, and that's what the people come for. We got to give them what they want.
I love it.
Can you speak to when you introduce a metric? Did you say you do it at your investor day? Is there a specific time of the year?
Yeah, so generally we have an investor day every 2 years. We generally do it around the end of February, beginning of March, depending on where we are for our earnings cycle. And in that 2-year or that every other year cycle, we will launch a new metric if we believe it is appropriate and it is giving the guidance. Sometimes it makes perfect sense. An example would be, we started a commerce business. We started giving GPV numbers out. That just matched because that's how you track a payments business is, GPV. So those are launched at that period of time, and then the cycle continues. And we do that for financial metrics. If we believe there's an operational metric out there that is important to show, engagement, we will sometimes launch that in our cycle. But for the financial metrics, we try to be consistent. So we're testing the financial metric. We're making sure that it really is tied to our success, and that when we go out with it, that we're ready to go out with it. I do, tell our investors all the time, listen, there's nothing worse than going out with a metric too soon and then realizing you have to change something about it later on. Our investors don't want that either.
Why is it so hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube once you give a metric?
Because number one, you have to explain why you're putting it back in the tube. All right. And when you have a great story, and I will always say this, we have a great story. I love our story. I love where we are today and where we're going with GoDaddy, with Arrow, how we're engaging our customers. When you have a great story, you don't want to be explaining metrics or putting things back in the tube or things that are inconsistent. You want to be talking about your story. And so you want to make sure that everything is aligned that talks about that story. And, you're not talking about other things when you get on those calls. You only have so much time with your investors and analysts. You want to talk about how good you're doing, not that, oh yeah, I stopped that metric because of A, B, or C. You want to be saying, I love where we're going with our customers. I look at this. Our we're attaching more products. Arrow is working. Our engagement, those are the things you want to be focusing on, not necessarily why you change the metric from quarter to quarter.
That's a soundbite right there. I love that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think another way to say it is the metrics should be characters within the story, but it shouldn't be the whole narrative.
I may use that.
I just made it up on the spot, so hopefully it was okay.
That is beautiful. I will give you credit too when I use it.
How do you think about ARR versus bookings? I feel like that's a hot topic among CFOs.
It comes back to leading and lagging.
Okay.
All right. And that's how I always characterize the two. When you're talking about revenue, and everybody's valued on an element of revenue, bookings is a leading indicator. So bookings come in, it is future revenue. So it is a leading indicator of where your revenue is growing. And if your bookings is growing faster than your revenue, it's an indication of you're making a lot of progress, you're growing the business, the metrics are working. ARR is a trailing 12-month revenue number. It is the lagging indicator. It's where you're going. So it will show up at the end and should start to show up as these booking successes take place. So I look at it very much as they are two different ends of the same story. One's at the beginning, the leading, and one's the lagging. And I think both are very important.
That's such a good way to put it. They each give you different perspectives on the health of the business.
That's right.
What about retention? What are some of the trends that you see around retention, and what are some of the metrics that you like to hang your hat on?
Yeah, so I'll come back to where we talked about this previously. The 85% is a great retention percentage for us, and something that's very important. We monitor even as we've been disposing of certain entities within our portfolio. We monitor it versus we always want to be around that 85% retention rate. That's the health side. Now the two ends of that spectrum are hey, if a customer in the first 6 months is still with us, then that's a sign they're going to stay with us. If they leave in the first 6 months, that's probably the highest level of churn that we see. So we monitor those statistics around, okay, the domain, getting to that first year, what does that do to the retention rate, knowing that overall this should average somewhere around 85%. But you start with, you have the high churn at the beginning. Once you get to that year one, once you get to that second product, once you get to that third product, the number jumps up from that average. So if you're being successful, you know that those numbers are going to continue to progress in a certain way. Now, we are not a small company. We have 21 million customers. And I always say this, nothing moves in that data set quickly, but you are always looking for that continued strength that drives over time, that allows you to know that this is working and going the right direction, and generating an LTV equation that we talked about, going from that 1x at the domain all the way to the 83x at the commerce platform.
And I think that's something that I would struggle with. I mean, it's almost an embarrassment of riches to have 21 million customers, but like, how do you get close enough to the micro when the macro is so big?
Yeah. So the micro. So two things in the tech industry, and I've been saying this way before I even came to GoDaddy.
Okay.
Two things in the tech industry I believe you need to always do in order to win on a long-term basis. You need to innovate. If you stop innovating, then ultimately you're going to be dead in the water. It may not be tomorrow, but somewhere along the line, someone will out-innovate you. You can't not innovate. You have to innovate. Number two, you need to own your customer relationship. You need to know your customer. You need to feel what they need. The jobs they need to do. You need to understand what their pain points are. You need to cherish that relationship. Our care organization does that. They know our customers. They engage with our customers. They can see what value they need. They can see and help them be more successful. They are proactive in the sense, hey, when our customer calls up and they have a problem on their website, our customer care guide will turn around and say, hey, have you checked how this shows up on your mobile device? It's not working either. And they'll help you fix that as well, right? They really engage that level with our customers, that they have that understanding. They have that relationship. And when you think about it from our customer base, they don't want to be dealing with customer care from 8 different organizations. I say that out loud and people are like, oh my God, yeah, I don't even want to deal with that, let alone someone trying to run a business. if you had all 8 applications on one platform and you had one customer care that actually picked up the phone when you needed help, that's gold. That's that customer relationship. So with that, we're able to take the data in everything we do and put it into, okay, what are we going to innovate around that customer to meet their needs? We are laser focused on our customers' needs. So, the macro, when you think about it, there's a lot going on out there. There are different moving parts at all times. We've seen it through years because we've seen the ups and the downs of the economy. We've seen changes in political, the frontier. We've seen it all. At the end of the day, the underlying customer and the micro business, they are a resilient, durable, proud group that just wants their needs met. And as long as you stay focused on that, you will continue to be successful. So I'll come with where I started, innovating for their needs and owning that relationship is the most important thing. And we do both extremely well.
I love how you keep bringing it back to relationships because a lot can, get lost if you just look at numbers. And I think there are different numbers to look at. Like one of the biggest revelations to me as a younger CFO is that I was always so focused on the financial data. Then I was focused on the sales data. Now I'm focused on the product data because there's other insights that, could be not showing up in my ERP that are around customer satisfaction, about how the customer relationship is going.
Yeah, that's right. And CJ, I've had an interesting experience in my life. I have gone from a large consulting firm that dealt with Fortune 1000 companies, great experience, to now an awesome company that deals with entrepreneurs and micro businesses. And what I have found unbelievably similar is I love going out and meeting the customers, regardless of whether it's that executive branch or, it's the mom and pop shop. And really hearing them and going out there, and I love doing it. And every quarter I'm out finding a customer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even have to find them. Sometimes I get in a car and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm a customer," and you just start engaging and talking with them. To hear their stories and hear what they've done and how they've gotten to where they are is just it's magnificent. So it takes you can take the data, you can take the metrics, but you also have to feel the customer and feel what they're getting and feel, hey, this is working really good, but we wish you would do that as well. And then hearing that and taking it back into all the data and really making sense of it is just, as a CFO, for all other CFOs out there, I would say if you are not out there with your customers all the time, hearing from them, you're missing out because it puts the entire picture together.
Meet your customers. That should be a bumper sticker.
I may use that too.
Mark, you touched on where you were before you ended up at GoDaddy, and a lot of CFOs who come on the podcast bring up this topic or this theme of building lines, not dots. Can you speak to how the power of relationships led you to GoDaddy?
Well, listen, it's a great story how I ended up here, and I decided I was going to leave PwC, and PwC was not going to be my final destination in my career. I wanted to do something else. And when I finally decided to make that move, I called someone I had worked with very closely at PwC as a client. His name is Mark Garrett. He's on our board of directors. He was also the CFO of Adobe. And I had worked with Mark closely as Adobe was going through their transformation and helped the company in different regards. When I called Mark, I knew I was going to leave, but I wasn't calling for a specific reason other than just to talk to him and get his thoughts. And 2 minutes into the conversation, he goes, "Oh, stop it, Mark. I have your next gig." And I laughed. I had no idea what he was talking about at the time. And he said, "Hey, listen, GoDaddy, the sitting CFO just announced his retirement. We're launching a search. I think you would be perfect. Can you meet Aman, the CEO, tonight?" And so I said, "Yeah, great. I'd love to connect with him." So I met Aman that night on Zoom. We were in the pandemic, so everything had to be done on Zoom. And Aman and I started talking. And I got off what was supposed to be a short call, took a lot longer. I turned around to my wife and I go, "I'm going to go work for this guy." She thought I was crazy. She was like, "It was your first phone call." Like you literally just decided this yesterday that you were gonna, make the jump somewhere, not knowing where. I thought it was gonna take a couple years. And this is your first call and you're telling me you're gonna go work from home. And I said, sometimes you just feel it. And sometimes you look at a company, you see where they are, you can provide value, and then you meet a CEO who you can just connect with. They have that vision. They have you can work with them. Their style, their leadership, how they're developing the culture is just perfect. And I got off and I said, I'm going to go do this. We had to work out a few terms. I have to admit, after that, it wasn't like I signed at the dotted line that night. But within a few weeks, we were ready to go, and it has been everything that I thought it would be at that moment. The culture of GoDaddy is just unbelievable. The focus on the customers, how we engage as a leadership team, how we exchange ideas. A board who is just great. They're an engaged board that's very smart, that brings perspective, gauges the management team at the right level. It all clicks together, and it has been just, for me, now I'm going on 4 years, and it's been quite a 4 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's been a big transformation for us, and now we're coming out of it and hitting the gas. It's exactly what I had hoped it would be on that first night. Like, that was what I felt. What I felt that night, as I talk to you, I still feel that, and that's exactly where I wanted to be.
That's badass. That's an amazing story. Mark, I'm going to take you into what we call our long ass lightning round. So I ask every successful person who comes on the show, give us an example of something you've screwed up on the job before.
Something I've screwed up on the job. Boy, I am terrible at Excel spreadsheets. I am terrible at Excel spreadsheets. You would think that I would know how to do Excel spreadsheets, but somehow I am always getting the numbers, the formulas wrong on that stuff. So I've just given up. I've gone to Word documents. Other people can do the Excel spreadsheets.
That's pretty amazing. You skipped that step and went straight to memos. I salute you. Next one I got for you. If you could tell your younger self something, knowing what you know today, what would you tell him?
I would give them the 3 rules that I now tell every young professional, including my kids coming up. I believe there are 3, I'll call them framework, that you should follow at all times when you're looking about, what you want to do, where you want to be, and what you want to engage in. Number 1, never be afraid to be uncomfortable. All right. If you're uncomfortable, it means you're heading in the right direction. If you are comfortable and it's easy, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Be uncomfortable. Right? Control your narrative. Don't let other people control your narrative. You're the one who's writing your own story. You control the narrative of how you're viewed, how you're perceived, what experiences you need, what your journeys are going to be. Don't ever let someone else take control of your narrative. It's your narrative, and if you let someone else dictate that, shame on you. Number 3 is find what you're passionate at, what you want to wake up every morning doing, thinking about. Find that and then use that as the fuel that moves you forward. So come back, 3 things. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Control your narrative and find something you're passionate about.
That's amazing. Control your narrative. That one definitely resonates with me. Thank you for sharing that. More of a technical one. Can you walk me through your finance software stack? What tools does your team use to get the job done?
We use Workday. And Workday has been a great partner with us. We recently adapted Adaptive. Sorry, that was probably a double adaptive. But we're using them for forecasting now, and it's working really well. We have a great relationship with Workday. Matter of fact, I met with them this week, and we're continuing to look at how we automate and make our technology stack on the finance more efficient. We have an interesting, tech stack in the back office, because we have been around for 21 years.
Yeah.
We have 21 million customers. We have all sorts of transactions, from, instant transactions, microtransactions, monthly subscriptions, annual subscriptions. We have so many different flavors of data all into one system. It creates a unique, I would say, use case for the tools to be applied against. And we're looking always to figure out how do we get more out of our data and get more analytics and be able to get more insights. And Workday's been a great partner helping us try to do that.
Nice. Last one I got for you. What's the craziest thing you've ever had someone try to expense?
Oh boy, I'm I've been around a long time. Okay. So there's been a lot of crazy, some of which I probably can't even talk about. But I will say the craziest probably happened earlier in my career, where an executive tried to put through a saxophone on their expense report, and I laugh a little bit. They were on, I don't know if it was like the Johnny Carson show but they were a saxophone player, and they had to get they wanted to do the saxophone on the show, so they bought it and they treated it as a company expense. Yeah, that was pretty unique. That didn't go over very well either.
Smooth jazz does not fly. That's a first on the show, Mark. Mark, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for being generous with your time. Like I said at the beginning, this was a bucket list interview for me. So thanks for making it happen.
CJ, this has been great. Thank you. I hope we can do this again at some point. This has been a lot of fun.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.